Okay, so hi. Just gonna ask you a few questions just about your career, about leading up to the career, how you feel. So I'm gonna start you off with when did you want to teach?
So it's interesting. I wanted to teach the first time I went to college, and I was going to school. I was going to be a teacher, and I was getting a degree in sociology and history. When I was in sociology, I was learning all about pretty much how messed up the education system was. And so I ended up leaving the education department. It's funny though, I wanted to be an elementary school teacher at that point. So I left the education department, and then I went out in the workforce for like 7 years. And I had this realization when I was working in wilderness therapy, working with at-risk teens, that a lot of them were saying they just didn't feel like their lives would had any value or worth. They didn't have any point. And I really started connecting it back to schools and the education they were having. And so I decided at that point, I was working an odd job at that point, not even at Open Sky anymore. And I was talking to a friend, and she's like, just really listen to your dreams, um, and so I had this dream about being a high school teacher. I was like, oh, I'd never thought about that. Well, within a month, and I'd been really active in learning about education reform, but within a month, I got an article from the Telegraph about Animas High School. And so at that point, I was like, oh, I really want to teach at this school. It's got everything that I've researched and learned about, and this model that it really excites me. So that's when I decided to go back to school. It took me 2.5 years of going back to school to get my teaching license.
So what's your biggest take back from teaching then?
Um, well, I think that people always said it was a rewarding profession, but you can't really get that till you feel it. And so there are certain days where I go home and I really feel fulfilled. And I never even knew what that feeling felt like, to be honest, before. To feel really, in that day, I had worked with a student, I had changed the curriculum, figured out their learning style, and supported and helped them in a way that I knew was going to impact them forever in their journey in education. So that was probably when I started feeling that regularly, it was like, oh wow. On the flip side of that, I think it's the most exhausting career I've ever been in. So I've done everything. I've built houses. I've worked hard labor. I've dug holes, trenches with pickaxes, and by and far is the most exhausting because you're giving so much of yourself all day long.
So what made you want to teach high school instead of elementary?
I think I realized that at high school level I could teach the content that really excites me. And so when I was thinking about it and thinking about the progressive education that Animas was providing, I was like, ooh, I could teach about social issues, and I could teach about global poverty, and I could teach about the destruction of the environment. And it's not stuff that's easy to talk about or discuss with or get young children to understand. And so that's where I was really like, that's what I'm passionate about. So I really want to be able to teach that.
So what was your favorite part about teaching at Animas specifically, whether it's related to the actual classrooms or it's the environment?
I really think it's the community. I love being here. I love hanging out in the hallways. I never feel like I'm hiding away from people, which in some environments is what you feel like. And so I just think that the culture of teachers and then the culture of student to teacher is such a good feeling. It's like an instant community. You always have community. You never walk around and don't feel connected.
So going off of that do you have any roses and thorns about this job?
I do think that roses would be some of the things that I said, just working with students, really helping them see and find success, especially on their own, and teaching about my passions, having community. Those would be my roses. Thorns, I think, are just pretty applicable to any education system. They're not specific to Animas. It's really, about finances. I have 7.5 years of college I'm paying back. That's really hard within the salary we're paid. I think the other thorn is just the amount of work that sometimes I feel like I sacrifice a lot of myself for the job, that I have no energy. I go home and I literally could stare at a wall or just crash. I feel like I have nothing left to give at the end of the day to my daughter, to my community, my family and friends. And so I think that's a challenge. I think numbers, like, ideally this week sometimes I had 14 students in a room. That feels amazing. It feels you can modify, you can accommodate, you can get around to everyone. So I think, just trying I know that we don't have that luxury. I'm looking at, having 28 again at the beginning of next school year, and so it's not our luxury we're able to afford, but I do think, education in general, it's something that they need to work on, is smaller class sizes.
So going off of some of your poems, have you ever wanted to change careers, or growing up, did you want a different career, or what?
I've done that a lot in my adult life, so I've had a few different careers already in my adult life. This is only my third year of teaching, so I'm still very passionate about it. I think the only direction change I see myself going in, because I want to give teaching a good solid 10 years, and then I'd like to look at more like the college level, like either teaching education or teaching history. So I just don't want to become burnt out. Like, I feel like I'm a good, effective teacher now because I'm a pretty new teacher. I don't want to lose that ever. And if I feel that I'm ever losing that, I think it's selfish to stay within a profession like this just because you can.
And that's about all that I was really curious about, revolving around the teaching job and how you kind of led up to that. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.